is that actually the correlation coefficient between age and potential is 0, that women actually have slightly higher potential than men. The qualities to look for to identify high potential are actually 4 plus the right motivation. The 4 are curiosity, insight, engagement, and determination. But there is also the right motivation. The right motivation is a paradoxical blend of full commitment with your mission together with deep personal humility. Key differentiating competencies between an average performer and a top performer are emotional and social intelligence-based competencies, soft competencies. The only way to actually assess those type of soft competencies is by speaking with people who have worked close to them, have seen them in those type of circumstances, have seen them in action, and have the motivation to tell you the truth. And it is certainly very, very limited for very senior roles. My name is Claudio Fernandez Arauz Felodi. I am an executive fellow for executive education at Harvard Business School and also a senior advisor of Egon Zehnder International, a leading executive search firm. The change in the population demographics fundamentally is reducing the number of workers and leaders in the most strategic age bracket, which is particularly the 35 to 45-year-old. Because of the aging of the population, the number of people and the percentage of people in that age bracket is shrinking. Now, the way to deal with that is in 2 ways. First, to become aware that we should actually consider both younger and older people. And what we found in our firm is that actually the correlation coefficient between age and potential is 0. What this means is that not only the strategic people in that age bracket, but younger people and older people can have also very high potential. The second thing is to consider more women, because all over the world, while if you go to the business schools, the majority of people are actually women, even in the United States, when you look at CEO positions, only 3% of them are women. And in our research, we have found that women actually have slightly higher potential than men. So we should also consider more women, and in this way we will eliminate the talent crunch because of the aging of the population. So large companies have 2 advantages. One, they have lots of experience and they can do the analytics and they can have statistics of who the best workers are, on the one hand. The other advantage that they have is because they have been successful, they have a brand that attracts people and acts more as a magnet for talent. Small and medium enterprises are at a disadvantage in those 2 points of view. So they should invest much more time attracting the right people. But the second thing that small and medium enterprises have is the advantage of being more motivating workplaces. Why? Because they can give people more autonomy, because they are less bureaucratic. They can have a greater sense of mission, of purpose, because they are working very close to the owner of the company. So even if you have the right experience for this job today, this job tomorrow will be a different job. And if you don't have the potential to continue growing and learning and fundamentally changing, you won't be able to be successful. The qualities to look for to identify high potential are actually 4 plus the right motivation. The 4 are curiosity, insight, engagement, and determination. But there is also the right motivation. The right motivation is a paradoxical blend of full commitment with your mission together with deep personal humility. So you don't want to do things because of selfish reasons, but because of selfless reasons. The good news is that most of them are largely characteristics we can develop. You need to work to cultivate your curiosity throughout the whole life. Same thing with insight. You can become much more insightful if you think logically, if you do decision trees, if you do issue analysis. Now, Chinese have very strong potential on average. They have greater curiosity than the global average, greater insight and greater determination, but they have lower engagement. But engagement can be developed. Determination is the one characteristic that it is harder to change at an adult age, but you can still change it through some life-transforming experience or with the right type of external support in terms of coaching. Now, the difference between an average person and a star worker is very different for different types of jobs. And what it happens is that it grows exponentially with the complexity of the job. So, for example, you look at an old blue-collar worker in an assembly line, someone who is adjusting bolts or nuts. So you would have a distribution of productivity where if the average is 100, the standard deviation is 20%. This means that the highly productive worker would be 40% more productive than an average one. If you look at a more complex job, for example, a computer programmer, a software developer, the standard deviation is not 20%, it's not 120%, it's 600%, which means that a highly productive worker would be 1,200% more productive than the average one. That's why for complex jobs, and leadership and management is a very complex job, it really pays to invest time and effort to try to find the best and develop the best, because the difference between the best and the rest is extraordinary. Well, I think that the most important quality is the right type of motivation to do the right job. There's, for example, lots of research that shows that the difference between an average interviewer, for example, and an outstanding interviewer is huge. And the one thing that most differentiates the best interviewers from the average interviewers is the motivation to do the right job. If you want, for example, to be a good interviewer, you need to, first of all, generate a large pool of candidates. Second, you need to reserve enough time for the interview. Third, you need to think the questions in advance. Fourth, you need to have the discipline to ask the questions, to follow up on the questions, to take notes, to review your notes. You need to have the discipline to make that phone call for a reference checking to the person who is not responding and you still smash. But it is a matter of discipline. Discipline to close the door, discipline to put away the smartphone while you are interviewing the person. But it is disciplined people with disciplined action and disciplined thought who build lasting greatness, and this applies particularly for interviewers and overall for talent managers and HR leaders. And that requires the right motivation to do the right job. There are some roles, some positions where when you go abroad and when you go internationally, locals are much better. For example, for corporate affairs, for dealing with the local regulators. For some roles, such as, for example, human resources, accessing the local market, it can be better. But for other type of positions, in most markets, chief financial officers, you can bring your own people, not in high inflation countries. For technical and operational, I think that you should fundamentally bring your own people, particularly people from China who are extremely bright from a scientific point of view, extremely disciplined from a productive point of view. For most of those cases, I wouldn't hire external people. What you should do is to make sure that the people that you bring abroad are people who have the sensitivity to working with others. So, for example, someone who works in marketing but is able to properly relate with the industrial people to deal very well with different cultures. Overall, the more that you can export your own people, the more you can promote people within your own organization, the better it is from 2 points of view. One is the cultural point of view. You build a cohesive culture. And two, it is highly motivational, because who wants to work for an organization that whenever there is a great opportunity? So I am, in general, in favor of trying to promote from within as much as you can. That role is extremely powerful already today in two types of circumstances. One is in jobs which typically are at a relatively low level. You have so many experiences of having people work in those jobs that you can do the analytics and you can find out what is the best profile of the people that are the top performers for that type of job. And let me tell you just one story. A few years ago, when I was a speaker at a big talent event for the public sector in Singapore, I met Subramanian Ramadurai, who was in those days the chairman of TCS, Tata Consulting Services, the information division unit of the Tata Group of companies. An extraordinary company. And I asked Subramanian, how many people are you hiring this year? And he said, oh, Claudio, 70,000. These are computer programmers, they hire them straight out of college. And this is what they were doing. So first, they have the data in their databases of the productivity of each of these programmers, and they also have the cost, salary plus bonus, plus training, plus hiring cost. So for each of those tens of thousands of computer programmers, they calculate the rate of return of each hiring. They divide the productivity by the cost of the individual. Step two, for each of the universities from where they hire, they calculate the average rate of return of each hiring for each university so that they realize which are the universities that produce the best graduates for them. Step three, they don't care about interviewing any of the candidates. They just make a blanket offer to the whole graduating class of that university because they know that on average they are getting the most productive people and their cost of hiring is zero. Step four, they develop 2 courses for the last semester so that they hire the most productive workers, pre-trained for the future jobs. So that is a very clever use of technology in that case where you have many jobs that are the same. Now, there are many more limits today for technology in situations which are unstructured, very unique jobs. For example, a CEO. Each CEO is completely different. And also for senior leaders, that type of high role position. Key differentiating competencies between an average performer and a top performer are emotional and social intelligence-based competencies, soft competencies. It's all about knowing yourself, it's about managing yourself, it's about understanding others, having empathy, having social awareness. And as a result of this self-understanding, self-control, and social awareness, outstanding relationship management, visionary leadership, teamwork, collaboration, conflict resolution. Those types of things you cannot check still today with an algorithm on the social networks. And so the only way to actually assess those type of soft competencies is by speaking with people who have worked close to them, have seen them in those type of circumstances, have seen them in action, and have the motivation to tell you the truth. And it is certainly very, very limited for very senior roles. Oh yes, I am even more optimistic now in this trip because Chinese people are blessed with 2 things. One is their people. Chinese people score very high in terms of curiosity and insight, and this is key for innovation, and very strong in determination, which is related to the hard working habits. Finally, Chinese people have this incredible entrepreneurial spirit and commercial orientation. I sometimes tell the story. Once we went to the Great Wall with my wife, and the previous year I had been there before, and as we were walking the first 100 meters where all the shops are, a woman came to me and said, I know you from last year, Felodi, good friend, buy from me again. And I couldn't believe it. Possibly millions of people walk over there, and we all foreigners look alike, so it's very hard. And she recognized me, and she fought like a tiger to try to close the sale, which she did very successfully. So one of the blessings is this, the people. But also, China is blessed with a unique opportunity because of its government. Because it is not one of the traditional democracies. In China, even the SOEs sometimes make investments that they don't expect fast returns. They move from basic manufacturing to advanced manufacturing to hardware production to software production to bioengineering to artificial intelligence. That's the way to do it. And I think that China will become the #1 economic power in the world, and I am extremely optimistic about it.